Hi, Nintendo.
And I'm Sega. This is God Wars!
Dude, guess what finally came?
My lung medication?
No, it's way better than that. It's the new Judge Dredd Blu-ray.
Oh, sweet!
Well, that's kind of rude and gross. Anyway, it's got all these awesome never-released scenes.
Unreleased stuff. Is it NC-17?
NC-35.
Ooh, nice. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's watch it.
I'm under heavy fire here. It's a good thing I have my log here. Armor piercing, empty. Double whammy, empty. The hunka chunka, empty. The tango and or the cash, empty. The Italian stallion, empty. The Irish quarterback, empty. The gladiator helmet, empty. Well, give me something. Armed.
Man, that gun is awesome. Let's see some more.
Yeah. Ooh, look. Looks like they originally wanted to kill Rob Schneider's character. Here's a bunch of deleted scenes of him dying.
We have 5 seconds to surrender.
Dredd, it's just a servo droid.
The servo droid
Dredd?
is your friend.
5.
Boy, Mike!
Alright, you ready, kid? I've never apologized.
Welcome home.
Oh, that was awesome. Are you crying?
That last one, I had a cousin that went the same way.
Well, this will make you feel better. An unreleased Weird Al video.
Ooh.
Here's a warning to you bad guys. Do not mess with a judge. I am the law. I am the law. I'm the law. Law, law, law. Law, law, law.
Well, that was fun. That makes me want to get some Jane's Addiction tickets.
Me too.
Oh. Well, let's watch one more scene. That'll make us feel better.
Is that true? I have eyes on the suspect. Freeze! You're under arrest! Why? 'Cause you broke the law! Why? I knew you'd say that. Why? I didn't think you'd keep saying that. Why? That's enough! Now get down on the ground and put your hands behind your head. Why? Because I am the law! Why?
Makes you wonder why we never got more Stallone-Schwarzenegger crossovers.
Seriously, I gotta say, all this Judge Dredd really makes me want to play the video game.
Oh, that was such a fun game. I used to play it all the time. Well, for the Sega Genesis.
Right. But it was better for the Super Nintendo.
What? That's it! Are we doing this?
Do most of Superman's love interests have the initials LL, with reporter Lois Lane, high school sweetheart Lana Lang, a mermaid he dated while attending Metropolis University, Lori Lamaris, and an actress from Krypton he met traveling back in time before the planet's destruction, Lila Laryl. Yes!
Best Judge Dredd.
Judge Dredd was created for the British weekly anthology comic 2000 AD by John Wagner and Carlos Esqueda. In 1990, the character would get his own title, the Judge Dredd magazine. Since then, the character has been adapted to novels, films, and of course, video games.
There have been quite a few Judge Dredd video games. Today we'll be looking at the side-scrolling action game based on the 1995 film. Developed by Probe and published by Acclaim, there were games for Game Boy, Game Gear, DOS, and Windows. Our focus will be on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis versions. While they have many similarities, there are quite a few differences as well. Which one's better? Let's find out.
Both games look incredibly similar.
Dredd looks the same in both games. The enemies also look the same. Bosses too. Character animations are identical as well.
The levels look the same too, and there are a lot of them. Sometimes the colors are a little different, but overall, look of these games is the same.
Both games look really similar at initial glance, but there's actually a lot of differences.
Well, you know where we gotta start.
You better not say.
Cropping!
Once again, whenever there are similar looking games, the Super Nintendo version is cropped, always stretching out the screen resolution on Super Nintendo.
Okay, it's cropped, but my game still looks better. Back to the levels.
Here's the first level on Sega. Looks fine, but now let's look at Super Nintendo. Rain. And it's not just the first level. A few levels have rain on Super Nintendo. On Sega, once again, no rain. Now let's look at the sewer. On Sega, it looks fine, but now look at Super Nintendo. Vignette. Another effect often missing in Sega games, and again, it's done on many Super Nintendo levels. Not one Sega level has it.
Okay, but my game does have a lot of flickering lights.
Oh, you think your game has flickering?
Yeah.
Flicker picker?
Flicker picker.
This device next to the pod flickers on Sega, not Super Nintendo.
These columns have lights that flicker on top and bottom on Super Nintendo. No flicker on Sega.
That's nothing. On Sega, the lights of this railing flicker. No flickering on Super Nintendo.
No, but the lights on the ship in the backgrounds flicker on Super Nintendo. Not on Sega.
Okay, but these stars in the background flicker on Sega. You don't even have stars on Super Nintendo.
Time to end this. First level. Look at the big old flashy billboard. Autos. It's even in the background later. No auto sign on Sega.
Now, let's change gears and talk about the sky.
The skies on Super Nintendo always use a gradient effect. Sometimes it's very subtle, and sometimes they use vastly different colors. It makes the sky interesting to look at, much more interesting than the Sega game. No gradient effect on Sega. Just one color. One boring color.
I don't know, some of those colors don't blend that well.
Enough of this. Time to go for the kill. Let's go to the speeder bike level.
Here's a speeder bike level on Sega. Looks fine. How you'd expect a speeder bike level to look on Sega. But now check out Super Nintendo. Mode 7, baby. It's really no contest which one looks better.
Super Nintendo easily wins graphics.
For having rain and vignette effects, plenty of flickering, gradient skies, and Mode 7, best graphics go to Super Nintendo.
The presentation's very similar.
Just look at the cutscenes, they're all pretty much the same. You have the same intros, same vidcom link messages between levels, same endings, same credits, and same game over screens.
HUDs are pretty much the same too.
There's your life bar, number of lives, score, weapon and ammo, and a small area telling you what objectives you've completed.
Pretty much the same.
Well, you know I hate to nitpick.
Something tells me that's not going to stop.
That's not gonna stop me. Let's look at the score tallies.
Both games give you the same score tallies at the end of each level. The Sega game says Dredd bonus awards up top. Super Nintendo doesn't.
Yeah, that's really important, because otherwise, how would I know they were bonus points? But your game is missing something at the tally.
The score tally isn't just for points. Sometimes you can get extra lives there. The Super Nintendo game tells you when you get one. The Sega game just has a sound effect.
And I have another reason my presentation's better.
In each level, you can go to a terminal to see how you're doing with the objective. The Super Nintendo does this with fractions. 1 out of 5 here, 9 out of 30 there, easy. The Sega game, however, uses percentages. While this might not seem like that big a deal, consider this. On Super Nintendo, I know I've taken care of 9 enemies, 21 to go. On Sega, it's less definitive. 61% of enemies taken care of, 39% to go. So how many is that exactly? If you weren't keeping count, it could be 39 more, 13 more, anything that divides into 39. And it's not precise since they don't use decimals. 16%? That doesn't go into 100 evenly. Overall, it's harder to keep track of how much of your objective is left on Sega. Fractions on Super Nintendo make it nice and clear.
Fractions? Who's nitpicking now?
Alright, let's talk about the boss battles.
On Super Nintendo, whenever your attack hits a boss, they flash. Typical reaction to getting attacked. Lets you know your attack is working. On Sega, no flash. You don't really know if your attacks are doing anything. Some enemies need to be hit just in the right spot. The Sega game has no way of telling you that. You just keep attacking and hope you're doing the right thing. Super Nintendo easily lets you know with flashes. I mean, it's not that hard. Even we've done it. A couple times.
There's just enough to give my game the edge.
For telling you when you get a 1-up, fractions instead of percentages, and flashing bosses, best presentation goes to Super Nintendo.
These games have the same music and sound effects by Andy Brock.
Yeah, but mine sounds more orchestrated, like it's from the actual movie.
So mine sounds synthy and electronic. I just feel like my music sounds more full, while yours is a little more hollow.
Okay, well, how about the fact that I have more songs than you?
The Super Nintendo game has different music for each boss. The Sega game just has the one song.
Okay, you have a few more songs, but that's not a big deal because my sound effects are much louder.
All the sound effects are louder on Sega, whether it's gunshots, explosions, or even flamethrowers.
Okay, your game is louder, but my game has more sound effects.
Let's start with the guns. Your gun on Sega has the same sound effect as someone firing a shotgun. On Super Nintendo, those guns sound different. Also on Super Nintendo, pickups have different sound effects for items and ammo. On Sega, items and ammo all sound the same.
When it comes to sound, my game just has more.
For having more songs for boss battles and having more sound effects, best sound goes to Super Nintendo.
Gameplay is also pretty similar.
You play as Judge Dredd in this side-scroller. Controls are simple: one button to shoot, one to hit, one to jump, one to arrest, and 2 buttons to toggle between different weapons. You can also run with a double tap. And the screen pans when you look up or down.
You can shoot your gun in 8 different directions. Your handgun Lawgiver can use many different types of ammo. General purpose shells are infinite, while all others can run out. Most enemies you'll just have to take out with the general purpose shells. The more powerful ammo you usually save for the boss.
In addition to ammo, there's power-ups. They're pretty typical things like health, extra lives, or points. One cool power-up is the anti-gravity belt. This lets you fly for a short amount of time.
This game is a bit unique in that the goal for each level isn't just get to the end. Every level has a main objective that you need to complete before you can exit. It can range from destroying weapons, to activating terminals, to taking out certain enemies.
Most levels also have a secondary objective. These are optional, but good for racking up points. They're usually simple too, just like taking out all the enemies. Each level has a certain number of enemies and they never respawn.
This game does offer some variety in that you don't have to kill all enemies to take them out. You can arrest them. Who you can arrest depends on either the weapon used or the enemy. You don't need to arrest anyone, but again, it's good for getting extra points and items.
There's another unique enemy in the game, Spirits of Dark Judges. These appear after taking out certain enemies. You need to use the boing bubble to freeze them, then you can arrest them for bonus points.
There's no saving in these games, but they do have passwords for certain levels. They don't just give it to you either. You need to find the password on a floppy disk. And you'll want the password because this game is long. 12 levels total with 2 or 3 stages each, and they're not short stages either.
It's actually a pretty fun game.
Fun, but challenging.
There's definitely a learning curve to these games, so don't expect to go in blasting. In fact, you want to take your time and avoid getting ambushed. One piece of the environment that's your best friend is the ladder. Most enemies just attack left or right. This means you can chill on a ladder and shoot at enemies either straight down or at an angle. 99% of the time, they won't hit you. And this game has lots of ladders you'll be using to avoid getting hit.
Even with the ladder cheat, it's still a challenging game. But it does get easier on multiple playthroughs. Once you learn certain patterns, it can be really fun too. It's a surprisingly fun game considering the source material is one of Stallone's more poorly received films.
Another reason the game is challenging is the level layout. Levels aren't just linear. You have many different paths to take, many different places to go clear your objective. While getting lost won't necessarily kill you, it sure can take up your time.
Both games are fun, but there are some differences.
Now I'll say, your game is flawed.
Certain platforms you can shoot through. It's great for killing enemies without losing any life. On Sega, you can shoot straight up at an angle, straight down, or down at an angle. However, on Super Nintendo, you can only shoot straight up, not at any angle, and definitely not down, only up. This makes the Sega game much easier.
Your game's flawed too.
Both games allow you to switch weapons while pausing. It's a great way to pick the proper weapon without taking any damage. It's especially great for selecting the boing bubble since those Dark Judge spirits escape pretty quickly. While paused on Super Nintendo, you can go forward and backward with the weapon select. On Sega, you can only go forward, so if you accidentally skip the weapon you want, it'll take more time.
So it takes a little more time. It doesn't ruin my game.
No, missing things does that.
This level on Super Nintendo has springs, moving platforms, and a hoverboard. On Sega, the level doesn't have any of these things. They do exist on Sega, but they're not used as frequently as Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo game has an exclusive boss battle with this Sky Surfer. The Sega game does not have that boss. Instead, you just take out a bunch of regular Sky Surfers, which are common enemies in both games.
Missing a boss battle is a pretty big deal, but so is this.
Both games reward you with an extra life every 250,000 points. Yeah, sort of. On Sega, you get an extra life for the first few times, but after you reach 1 million points, you no longer get extra lives. It makes the Sega game much harder. The Super Nintendo game, on the other hand, gives you plenty of extra lives every 250,000 points, even well after breaking 1 million.
There's just more to my gameplay.
For having more springs, moving platforms, and hoverboards, being easier to select weapons when paused, an exclusive boss battle, and an extra life every 250,000 points, best gameplay goes to Super Nintendo!
Both games are good, but one's better, and that's Judge Dredd for the Super Nintendo.
It has better graphics for environmental effects, gradient skies, and Mode 7. It has better presentation for fractions and flashing bosses. It has better sound with more music and more sound effects. And it has better gameplay with more springs, moving platforms, and hoverboards. An exclusive boss battle, being easier to select weapons when paused, and extra lives every 250,000 points. The second game is fine, but when you play the Super Nintendo version, you see how much it's missing. And since both games are around the same price, just get the more complete version. Best Judge Dredd goes to Super Nintendo!
Oh, I can't believe I lost.
You know, make you feel better?
My lung medication?
Seriously, shut up about that. No! More deleted scenes!
Oh yeah, put those on. I'm ready to go.
Judge Dredd, take cover!
They're firing 20mm caseless Fletcher rounds at 300 meters. Effective lethal range is 200 meters. You're safe. Ugh, I was wrong! Right in the law! Avenge me, Hershey! What are you talking about, Rico? What have you done?
You don't even know, Dredd. There was a third clone main of us. Let me introduce you to our brother.
Hey, I don't know about you two, but I'll do some boxing, you know? Some boxing. What is this monstrosity? Whoa, what'd you say to me? Don't give me no lip!
Let his armor be taken from him. And all his favorite possessions. His badge, his gun, his helmet, his Corman moose, his scented candles, his rubber ducky, his Star Wars original trilogy on VHS, his Star Wars special edition trilogy, also on VHS, his various assortment of obsolete wires and chargers, his decorative plate, while very tasteful, still illegal in 74 countries, and his 3 seashells.
Get down on the ground and put your hands behind your head. You're under arrest. I've been looking for you for a long time.
Oh crap!
Stages.
You take some old used piston and you stick it in and you pull it out. In, out, there's no end to it.
Mission.
To pulverize my pee-pee.
Haven't you ever had a friend?
Yes. Once.
I'm having a good time hanging out with you, Dredd. But unfortunately, all good things must come to an end.
Uno! Sorry to disappoint, Rico, but it looks like you have to draw 4.
No, I don't think I'm gonna do that.
But those are the rules. The rules of Uno!
Sorry, Dredd. It's not gonna happen.
You refuse to draw?
That might be the one.
Thanks for watching our latest video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Support us on Patreon for early releases, bonus content, and the Discord. Also check out our live channel, Console Wars Live. Special thanks to XaviorTheLycan for the donation of the 2 games. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram for more Console Wars goodness. Later.